So this is a DrumWise Meets, and today I'm here with Michael Schack. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Tom.
My first question to you is one that you'll have been asked tons of times. What equipment do you use?
You mean in general?
Just in general, so acoustic drums, electric.
Okay. So I'm a Meinl Tama artist since many years. I am a big fan of the Meinl Byzance series, and I mash them up all the time. I have a couple of Tama drum sets. The one that is always set up in my studio, mic'd and everything for any session and also sampling session, is a Star Classic Bubinga from 2015. And it became a collector's item because Bubinga is a wood type that's not allowed for drum productions anymore. So I'm sticking to that one. I always combine it, as you can see in my clips online, with an aluminium snare, the Phonic, which I love. It's like a €350 snare with a 2,500 euro or 2,250 pounds sound. So I love that. I use Evans heads on those acoustic kits. And of course, I also combine them with some triggering, the RT series from Roland into a TM6 Pro. So that's mainly the acoustic setup. And always an SPDSX on the side to trigger my music and so on. So it's a little bit of a trick. Then on the electronic side, my main one, which I use for all my festival gigs as a DJ drummer and also with Netsky when we play live and so on, is a TD50 KV or KVX. I also use the same standard setup for many drum festivals around the world. And I also combine that always with an SPDSX on the side, and always also with Tama hardware. So it can be an Iron Cobra drum pedal or the latest Dynasync, but always Tama hardware. Even the throne needs to be a Tama hardware because it makes me fart like home. And then I'm an Ableton artist. So for anything I do, recording, production, but also on the stage, I use Ableton Suite, always the latest version, sometimes even a beta version, which didn't come out yet. And in that Ableton software, I use Isotope for all kinds of EQing, all kinds of tricks, and also mastering. And I am also a big fan of Roland Cloud, which is now all those Roland synths up in the cloud. So wherever I travel, I can always access my sounds. And I'm also supported by Arturia, a very famous French software synth company. And I also use the Rob Papen synths from my friend in Holland. He's a synth guru, and he's very well known in the electronic dance music scene as one of the synth gurus from Holland. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then I have a couple of laptops to use on the stage, but I always take two because you never can leave the house without the a backup system.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
When we do our student concerts and we're using this kit, I always take the whole second kit as well, like everything, just in case. You never
know. And it's like, it can be very frustrating to travel somewhere, even by car, and then end up being stuck with something that didn't work. It's mostly not the Roland gear, actually.
Yeah.
But it can be a USB cable. I always take two USB cables, to connect the SPDSX to the Ableton, because you never know if one is gonna, break. I always take 2 power adapters. You never know. Okay. Also very important because, oh damn, I'm out of juice on my laptop, there goes the show. That's also a possibility. So yeah, I completely follow you.
And on that note, yes, I've never had a Roland fail me on a live setting. So,
I did, but I'm not going to tell you how it happened. It was my mistake.
so talking a bit about you and drums. So, what age did you start drumming? What was your first drum kit? And what music or bands inspired you when you were first playing?
I started being interested in drums when I was 4 years old. My parents saw me moving to certain rhythms, and I remember clearly when I was 5 that I had a favorite French singer. His name was Gilbert Bécaud. I live in Belgium, so I speak French and Dutch. My main language is Dutch. But Gilbert Bécaud was, they called him Monsieur Mille Volts, or as they say, 1000 volts. He was Mr. 1000 volts. He was a French entertainer, songwriter, chansonnier, and he played piano at the same time. And he had this piano he set it up very weird, in a very weird way, towards the audience, but also angled. And he was smoking, and he always wore the same tie with white dots. And then he had a couple of very famous tunes. And my mother took me to a concert when I was an afternoon concert in Antwerp when I was 5 years old. And that's when I totally watched him and the interaction with the drummer. And when I was 7 for Santa Claus, I received my first snare drum. That's how it happened. But throughout my youth and my puberty and my studies, because actually even after finishing high school, I studied applied economics at university. So I was never in the intention of becoming a professional musician. But during my last year at university, I joined the band, and that band 2 years later, I also was in army service at that time. 2 years later, after joining them, we released an album. I wrote some tunes on there together with all the band members, and it became a golden record. So I became a professional musician through the success of a real live band. And I think that's a big advantage, because I became a professional musician as a band member and enjoying playing festivals and big shows. So it was like a drill how to perform on the stage. So that's how probably also that my extrovert type of drumming came along. And I also played a lot of clubs with all kinds of jam sessions at that time. You know, it was the 90s where the police wasn't pulling the plug all the time when you were out playing. So I really learned to play mainly on the live stage, I think.
Oh, cool.
I didn't actually spend a lot of time practicing.
Yeah.
I should have done it more when I was young. But I was just playing along to records and P-Funk. But you know, my favorite genre was P-Funk. And then when Level 42 happened, well, Mark King was one of my favorite bass players. And there you go. You know, it's still very deep in my system, that on the one P-Funk feel,
And
which people can tell. Yeah.
can you remember, in terms of your first kit, your first full drum set, can you remember what that was?
It was a very old second-hand Arai kit. And Arai was a Japanese brand that was the very first start before Tama happened. But my first real drum kit that I saved money for, and I asked all the family members and the uncles and the aunts, and so, yeah, please just give me money. When I was 15 years, or when I was it 15? I think I was 16 years old. I bought my first Tama clear maple finish Superstar, like Billy Cobham had one. He was my hero. And I had two favorite. I actually had like two favorite drummers I really listened to a lot: Billy Cobham and Stuart Copeland. And it was Tama. And I've been an endorser for Sonor, for Ludwig, for Slingerland, but since many years I've been back with Tama. It's something that stayed, I think. Yeah, yeah. But that was my first real drum set, and it was a Tama Superstar Maple combined with Tosco and Paiste cymbals. A mishmash of metal. Yeah, yeah,
Excellent. You've
yeah.
you've talked about some of your influences and some favorite drummers. I feel like this is quite a hard question, but here we go. If you had to pick just one, could you pick your all-time favorite drummer?
My all-time favorite drummer. No, I can't. But I'll try. My all-time favorite drummer. Well, one guy I really looked up to was Phil Gold from Level 42. He had the timing. He was actually a white guy playing very colored, with funky style. But that's probably not my favorite drummer. It's certainly not Dave Weckl or Dennis Chambers or any, although I listen to them a lot. But I think it might actually, when I saw him play jazz, it really did something to me. I think the power and also the attitude and everything. I think it might be Tony Williams. Yeah, but it's certainly not one of the fusion guys. It's some and Billy Cobham, certainly. When I was really young, it was Billy Cobham all over. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's not a question I could easily answer either. I'm not. I don't want to give you guys an easy time with these questions, you see. But because I feel like we're influenced by different people at different stages of our life.
Oh yes, I was mainly influenced by bands and music. George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, Bootsy Collins, the drummer who used to play with Chuck Brown, an incredible go-go drummer. Also, Dennis Chambers was actually the drummer with Parliament Funkadelic, and I didn't know Dennis Chambers at that time. He was just the crazy, very funky drummer with George Clinton. That's how I got to know Dennis Chambers way before he joined, the fusion scene and so on. And so yeah, and I was also, I can definitely tell you what music I didn't listen to. I was never a Rush fan, although everybody says Neil Peart was the drummer. Well, I don't know him. I was not a big fan of, for instance, the typical fusion scene drummers that did a lot of odd timing and multi arm things and so on. No, I was really into drummers who played with rap artists. I was a big fan of the drummer with Cameo. Do you know Cameo? Do you remember? Yeah, that old funk, Word Up. Man, he actually influenced me on the electronic side because he was playing a Simmons set with acoustic cymbals. He was the first actually black drummer with a funk band who did that. And another drummer I really liked and still love is Akira Jimbo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was the first to really go hybrid in a professional production with Cassiopeia. And when Cassiopeia was playing North Sea Jazz Festival in Holland, I always went. So yeah, it's not the typical drummer's drummer fan, which is sitting here in front of this Zoom recording session.
Well,
I'm a little bit of a rebel.
To be honest, I'm the same. I wouldn't choose a lot of these big guys that a lot of other people choose. To begin with, I was influenced by drummers of bands, probably much like what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. I love Chad Smith with what he did with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm a big fan of Rage Against the Machine. Man, when I played them live, I was like, what the fuck? I want to play with this band. And when I see the Foo Fighters, well, it reminds me of when I first saw Dave Grohl hitting, Smells Like Teen Spirit. That that's just epic.
Yeah, you yeah, you have to be moved by that drum, like that. Yeah, when you're
Um,
listening to that.
oh, exactly. Powerful simplicity and sound gives me more goosebumps than a paradiddle at 220 BPM.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Feel you there.
Yeah.
um, again, another hard one here. Don't think you're in for an easy time, Michael. You know, what's been the highlight of your career so far?
There's a couple, and I hope there's still some coming. Um, when I go in, well, actually, playing Rock Werchter for 60,000 people with Netsky was absolutely incredible. We were on the main stage after Green Day, and we were actually headlining the whole festival. Doing the same with Netsky at Pukkelpop, and also at Rhythm and Vines in New Zealand, and a couple of big festivals, all highlights. But probably the biggest one um, that was really peculiar was playing Coachella with Netsky, and we were playing after Motorhead, and Slash actually joined Motorhead at that gig. So you had a band, and then it was night, and then it was one of the big stages with the big tents, and then it was Motorhead, and then it was those fuckers from Belgium playing electronic drum and bass live, and those roadies of Motorhead were looking at the TD. Was it the TD50 at that time or TD? I think it was still TD30. They were looking at the set and said, "What the fuck is this?" And I was like, "I'll show you." And it was an incredible gig because Motorhead, there were a couple of thousand people there. But when we were about to start playing and there was this buzz going on, hey, that guy is here with drum and bass live, and it was only starting in the States. Suddenly, the whole place was packed with thousands and thousands of people, way beyond actually the surface of the tent. And we were the last band on, and it was epic. And backstage, on the side of the stage, there were a couple of Queen Latifah was watching from there. Those roadies from Motorhead, they were saying, how come that this band is not making any noise on the stage because we're electronic, and the whole people shit is happening right there, you know? So that's, yeah, and also playing Coachella by itself, you know, that's a highlight. Another big highlight for me was playing with Milking during a couple of years, sold out venue here in Antwerp, a 16,000 capacity venue, and we sold it out 26 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was just me playing dance music, 4 on the floor, 138 BPM, but that's when I felt what power a drummer has just with one kick drum.
Yeah.
So when I wasn't playing the kick, everybody was like, and then when I went in with the kick, you know, explosion. And it was nearly better than sex. Absolutely. And that's also where I learned a lot of the physical thing, you know, the physical endurance, playing in front of, you know, with DVD recordings and so on, and really trying to just enjoy the gig and not thinking about all the technical stuff and so on.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. One of the best ones we've had. So.
It's true.
Kind of going a bit educational here. So when you first get a gig with a new artist, how do you learn the songs? So do you just listen to stuff? Do you transcribe the stuff? Or are you given a whole ton of drum music and they go, here you go, Michael, here's the entire show in this folder? How's it kind of?
No, actually, I've been a little bit lucky. Like with the Netsky story, Boris Netsky came to me and he said, listen, I want to start a live project. Can you help me? Can you assist me? So this is like synergy happening. Also the same thing with Milk Inc. How are we going to translate the actual hit songs and the sound of those drums onto the live stage? So I had a lot of input with those artists. I was really involved in the live project. I was not just auditioning and getting a live gig with an MD. I was actually partly the MD together with for instance, the main artist and with Netsky, it was three of us. Me doing the drums and all those bits. Boris was concentrating on the technicality with the Ableton session, also playing his lead parts. And then the keyboard guy, Babel, he was mainly, okay, let's arrange this a little bit differently so it's more, you know, like a live feel. So it was really a synergy between musicians. On the other hand, when I am asked to do a session or a live, you know, as a live drummer, which I also did with a couple of big artists here in Belgium, I usually start listening to the songs first and just jam along. And then I was always lucky because the rehearsal started after the back line and the musicians were decided. So I never came into a project while they were already rehearsing. There's one project I did do that, but I cannot tell you which one because it's kind of a human situation. I transcribe a little bit, but that's mainly lead sheets, not actual drum parts with that kind of feel that, no. I already learned the songs and I jammed along for 3 days. And it's also a good exercise to actually train your musical memory as well. Because drumming is very physical. And when you hear a song and your body connects to the song without being dependent on an iPad, lighting up your face with a lot of dots and rests and so on, then you start enjoying the show as well. I will never be on stage with any paperwork. I will know the show by heart. Yeah. It's maybe a little bit more work, but it's really worthwhile because this is the way you can connect with the audience and just enjoy making live music.
Have you ever had anything go wrong on stage that you've had to recover from?
Constantly. Number one, for instance, when I play with in-ears, I always play with cabled in-ears. I never play wireless because it's a little bit latent, and I do my own monitor mixing sometimes. Of course, the mini jack broken at the beginning of the concert. The click is only running in one ear. So I'm like stressing up, but I also always have my spare cable. So then it's an exercise to find a way to get that second cable while you're actually playing the intro. And I can tell you, you're shitting your pants. There's stuff coming out of your whatever at the same time. So that's number one. So that's a common thing. Number two, for instance, electricity cut. Last time we played Reading and Leeds with Netsky, suddenly the power went off on stage. So you're hitting pads and nothing is happening. So everybody was like, what the fuck? And the crowd was dancing and suddenly they're like, huh? Sound is gone. So it's a nightmare, but it happens. Another thing is, for instance, on one of my drum tours in Asia, in India, it was in India, I was doing a TD9 combined with an SPD30 demo, and it was a beautiful day and everything. Of course, the power went off, but on top of the power going off, also a fire started. So you have to grab your stuff, and there's a couple of 100 people there, and they say, not a problem, not a problem, it happens all the time. But I'm like, what the fuck, I'm not gonna stay in this fire. So you grab your stuff and your data cards and so on, and you just run out while the people were still inside just putting out the fire. And the European white guy is outside like, what the fuck happened? And they say, come on back in, we have power, we have power. So there's plenty of stories, but that's the enjoyment of live music tours and things. Yeah, but let's say I never fell off stage.
I have.
I never tripped over cables.
I have.
Yeah, and I never made a female backing vocalist pregnant either. So I'm good.
Now,
Because you know the cliche, right? The drummer hooking up with the female backing vocalist, and 3 years later, life is over. Yeah, there you go.
yep.
Oh, that didn't happen. No.
Um, at this point, my normal question is, do you use any electronics live? But I'm not going to ask you that question because, I mean, that's just such a ridiculous question to ask you.
In my world, there's no life without electronics. It's very simple.
So instead, my question here is going to be, can you just talk to us a bit about your involvement with Roland? I mean, we are both lovers of anything Roland. I and can you talk to us about your involvement with Roland and specifically the TD50 module, which we have here, input into that? Because people watching this may not realize, but when they're playing on their TD50, there are kits that are kind of designed by you. So just talk us through.
We're a couple of, Craig Brundell also was involved. Actually, when I started really working and playing for the Japanese, for the headquarters in 2001, the first project I got involved in was, let me see, was the TD20. And that I was fortunate to play the TD20 world premiere at the NAMM show in 2004. But there were some kits in there. I started doing kit design. There were like 3 kits in there that were selected to be in. So that was really honor. You know, you're playing your own kits. But the thing is, I usually design kits for, I design kits for the TD20. I was very much involved in the TD20X, so the version with the expansion card. I was very much involved in the TD9, a very famous module which sold thousands around the world. And one of the projects I actually, and he became a very good friend, and unfortunately he passed away, not being able to see the success, was the SPDSX. Not only not content wise, like the musical patches in there, those songs are mine, but also the testing and improving it from the SPDS going into the SPDSX. So along the way, I learned a lot of how they work. They also learned a lot of what I always want to beef up the sound, but they have to find a good balance between, you know, people in India who like this kind of percussion sounds, while I would say, oh, get rid of this. No, India, very popular. And then I look at the figures and, you know, I learned a lot, putting my personality a little bit aside and thinking about the main common demeanor you need to get for every module. With the TD50, actually the TD30 was a really big project for me, because I made, together with the Japanese sound engineer, I made a lot of the processed sounds in there. I also was very much involved in testing and beta testing the user interface, how also the routing with how to put the mics and then going to the EQ and so on, so on, so on. And that was a project that took 1 year and a half. And that was in between 2010 and 2011. So the thing is, I was on stage with the TD20X or doing a lot of things with the SPD and so on, so on, so on. But I already knew what we were working on, and I couldn't wait till having that TD30 on the stage. Same thing with TD50. So through the experience with TD30, TD50 became a very, very big project, also with a new processor, because the TD50 is built around a new processor, new sound engine, which was totally different from the 20 and the 30. So it was like tabula rasa, start from scratch. And the TD50, let's say we had a lot of trial and error. It was a very difficult project with a lot of people, really no sleep for a couple of months. And when it came out, it was still not completely finished. But, you know, there was a deadline and it started, and then the updates came and people started to appreciate, because in the beginning, the TD50 was really, and truthfully, it was ranted. But I immediately started, you know, playing with my own kits in there with only the preset sounds and start. And then I discovered the TD50 is such a powerful uh, drum design module that you can totally personalize it, but nobody really understood the message. And now they're starting to understand the message. And there's not one TD50 module that ever broke down. So not one. The only thing that is happening now is constant updates and other modules coming from that one, like the TD27. But I must say, Tom, to be very honest, the one I will probably take into my grave, which is also a very personal story because of the synergy with the producer who actually designed it, is the SPDSX. It became such a big success. And together with him and the whole SPDSX team, we made some decisions in the years 2008, 9, and then 10 before it came out, which really changed drumming on the live stage all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
You always see one, and if people don't know what it is and they're watching this, there's generally, to a drummer's left there'll be a Roland set of pads with the little red lines in between, and it can be used for sampling or for backing tracks. And
it's being copied. It's being copied by any other brand. Well, they're trying to. So I'm really looking forward to what the future is going to bring. The SPDSX, you know, it's not just a drum product. It's a live performance must-have for any kind of music genre and all over the world. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. And that also, of course, lingers on in the TD50 and everything else that's coming, because the whole team and many of the people are still there is like, we did something right. We have to continue to do this. So the stress is like very, very demanding. Also, Jules is now very involved in the Japanese, way of thinking and everything. And it became from a very narrow-sided market, like a niche, it became just the biggest market. So the stress is there.
And I think, talking about just, we've gone off on one with Roland here, but to be honest, I think that was inevitable. But talking about the new VAD, I mean, I'm so excited to get our hands on one of those. And I think in the way that looks, that's a game changer. Because for me, a lot of people have said all the time, even with the TD50, yes, we've got the full size bass drum, but this doesn't look like a normal tom on a kit. So just with that change, it's a complete game changer now.
Well, I agree, but on the other hand, I never played one gig on a festival stage, and I'm not talking about drum festivals, but on a really festival main stage with Netsky, where anyone came to me and said, those are plastic drums. Because you can make them look great, even with the normal pads. It's just a matter of how you set them up and also how you make them sound through the PA. And I always use this example. Nobody is complaining anymore about the look of a synthesizer compared to a piano. Mm-hmm. Or about the look of an electric guitar compared to an acoustic guitar. We are very close to the same with V drums. There's even people that say, VAD series, well, not for me. I'm okay with the look with electronic drums now. But now that we have the choice, that's a big step forward. And the big advantage of the VAD is that it's also the first really acoustic looking pad that actually delivers the same quality triggering as an electronic pad. Because there's shells, they resonate, so there's specific isolation in there to make them work as good as an electronic pad. And that was a really big challenge, because you can make everything bigger, but it will also be a clump of external influences for the triggering system, which might fuck up the triggering, you know. So that it was kind of a challenge for the Japanese engineers to get this right. Of course, the price is a little bit more than just rebuilding an acoustic set, but you will never have any problem with the VAD series triggering wise. The rest, I don't think so.
Often that is the thing that people say to me the most, because obviously they know that DrumWise and Roland, you know, we work together because obviously we've got all Roland.
Yeah.
But when I recommend, if they say I want to get electronic kit, obviously I never recommend anything else. And that's just because I believe in these products. But certain kits can sometimes breed bad habits. For, you know, when, for example, when you haven't got a physical bass drum and it's not true, you know, foot technique and things like that.
Yeah, correct. And also there's a lot of, I call them assholes online who say, Roland is shit and Pearl is shit and Yamaha is shit because I build things myself. Yeah, good for you. But you won't be able to take those on the live stage, and you certainly won't be able to take those on the road anyway because they will break down. There's a reason why things cost a little bit of money. It's because it's being developed, it's being designed, it's being tested, and also it's supposed to work on the live stage as well. And there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now moving away from that topic, and moving away from drums actually. So what are your hobbies? What do you like to do away from drums?
Ableton actually, to be very honest, I don't really have a lot of hobbies. I don't have children, so I'm living the life of a professional musician from morning till late in the evening. I do take breaks, and I have a couple of vices. Like one of my vices is driving a Porsche.
Okay.
And I take care of it as it was my a child, my son or something. And I step on the pedal. So that's one of the things it took me years to get it, and it's still the banks. So it's becoming a little bit. I've always been a petrolhead, so cars is a little bit of a hobby. It's my brother's profession as well, so it's a little bit. Then I certainly sports-wise, I cycle. I do some bicycling, but not competition or anything, just to keep in shape. And for sports, I actually get up in the morning, and before breakfast, I try to play for at least 50 minutes on the acoustic set. That's my sports of the day. Yeah. And I don't hold back. It's before breakfast and before shower. Okay. But after toothbrush. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I'm certainly a fan of Netflix. I watch a lot of good movies and documentaries. And I'm very interested in world politics. I do have an opinion, but I will not take it on the stage. But I'm very much into, political situations in different countries, and racism and abortion and all those kinds of things that are really freedom for us here in Europe that are still a very big problem in some parts of the world. I actually noticed that also while traveling. Playing in Dubai is a totally different vibe, knowing this, or in Saudi Arabia, than playing in Japan, which is it's a beautiful culture where religion is not a problem. So that's also, I read and I follow a lot, and I'm an absolute protester of conspiracy theories, but they actually excite me sometimes because it tells everything about people's imagination. So I do have a couple of hobbies then, I guess. Yeah.
One day I have to pick your brains about the Porsche, because that's a dream of mine.
I have a Cayman, and a Cayman S. Yeah. I used to have one with an ex-girlfriend. She got me hooked, and then I got this one. It's a 4-cylinder, so it can lasts for years because it's a Euro 6, you know, exhaust thing. And it was there, and it said, "Take me home." And I'm like, shit. So yeah, it's yeah, I love the roar of the engine, like I love the sound of drums.
And how, but
That's,
how do you how do you get your drums in it? I mean, have you got a trailer?
no, I have another car which I rebuilt into it's a like a utility version of a common car which I use to get my drums in and, you know, drive around Benelux. And then when I do bigger festivals, like when I come to the UK or I need to go further away, I usually drive from here, from Antwerp till Frankfurt. So, and then after, let's say, if it's more than 5 or 6 hours drive, I will take a train or fly. And of course, with the V drums, I just need to, you know, take an SD card, a USB stick, and a backpack with some fresh underwear, because you never know if something is gonna go wrong.
And a Tama drum stool because it's wiped clean.
No, that's probably no. Actually, that's a hotel towel on top of that. That would.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
So probably the most important question here of this interview. What's your favorite biscuit?
My favorite biscuit is the Jules de Stroper. It's a very famous Belgian brand. It's a coffee biscuit. It's called a galette, and it's from Jules de Stroper, and it's actually made here in Belgium. It's very famous. And I know the press agent who does all the marketing for Jules de Stroper. And once in a few months, I get a shipment of Jules de Stroper, and they have two choices: a galette with the coffee, or an amandelkoekje, which is actually a small biscuit with almonds inside.
Ooh.
So that's my favorite biscuit.
And what was it called again?
Jules de Stroper.
Just
It costs like, yeah, that's the brand. It costs like normal price in Belgium, and it costs 10 times the price in Japan. They even have it there. Yeah, it's like, whoa, fuck! Is this like 50 euros for the thing I pay 5 euros for in Belgium? So I always do. Yeah, I'll leave this. I'll get it at home. And my favorite drink. Do you want to know my favorite drink as well?
Let's do it.
Red Bull. Absolutely. Yeah. I stopped drinking Coke. I drink water and Red Bull. No alcohol ever, but Red Bull, I love it. One a day can be so tasteful, and two a day when I'm really have a long day. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a big Red Bull drinker, but my main show is a Led Zeppelin Deep Purple tribute, and it's a hard show, and it's like 2 hours 10 minutes. And I was feeling tired this day. I've got a little boy, you know. I was tired, and it was the start of the show, and I had some Red Bull, and I hadn't had it for ages. And you know what? It made my mouth so dry while I was playing, and I couldn't believe it. It actually had the opposite effect of what I wanted. So it did, not that I didn't enjoy it, but it did make me think, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. Well, I just enjoy it. I also know the people that do Red Bull here in Belgium. They have a very active Red Bull Electropedia, electronic music site. Also, Red Bull is very much involved in music, and I always have chewing gum after a Red Bull to keep the mouth. Yeah. But I love the taste of it. And Monster and all those copies. No, it needs to be a Red Bull. 25 centiliter can, very, very cold from the refrigerator, and my day is perfect. Yeah.
So my last question for you, if you could just give one bit of advice to up and coming drummers, what would that be?
Play as you are. If you're a guy who is more of a jazz player, don't try to, become a different player than what's in your physical, what's in your core, in your musical soul. If you're a fan of Michael Jackson, play as you were the drummer of Michael Jackson. If you are a fan of Led Zeppelin, play as you were the drummer of Led Zeppelin. if you are a fan of cheesy pop music that people say is cheesy, just play that music with 100% intention and as loud and as sexy as possible. That is the most important message. That's what I did actually, and it helped. It made me what I am today. And it's a very physical thing. It's like watching a dancer. When you're a very young person and you start and you have a talent for dancing, you have a style immediately because it's your body. Well, it's the same with drummers. Drumming is a very physical thing. And when people rant me online and they say, man, this guy is gonna get the whiplash and he's so physical and he plays too loud and too hard, I'm like, thank you for the compliment. That's my advice. Yeah.
And actually, there's possibly quite an important message in what you just said there, because we have students that film videos of themselves and put them up online. And I think the internet's great, but it's also not great, you know, for people.
It's two dimensions. It's two dimensions. There's nothing more three-dimensional than a live concert.
Yeah, totally. So don't always believe the haters out there on the Facebook, YouTube trolls, you know.
I actually love them, you know, because it's also a good exercise in stress management. Sometimes they will say, you're a fucking asshole, you look like a Nazi, you're from Germany. I'm like, the Germans were supposed to annexate Belgium, but that didn't work out. I'm actually from Belgium. I have a Belgian passport and I love you too. That's usually. And, you know, ranting, you know, all those ranters, you know, I always think, oh man, it's such a pity. You could have played drums right now instead of ranting and reacting, and you could have played drums and just become a better drummer. Or you could have made, you know, love to your wife. Oh, she left. Ah, I wonder why.
So, Michael, thank you so much for spending your time with us here at DrumWise today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for the invitation. And Tom, to be very honest, I wish there were so many more people like yourself doing this online. It's very important. And, you know, once the borders are going to open again, I really want to spend some time at your studio.